This is one of those questions that fry the brain. If God created everything, who created God? It sounds simple, but it's a bottomless pit, like asking where the first egg came from if the chicken came first, or trying to understand income tax without crying. The Bible, clever as it is, says that God has always existed. Without beginning, without end, without needing an explanation. But then the question remains, how so? Shouldn't there have been someone or something before him? Did he appear in a cosmic snap? Or was it a great divine idea to avoid questions? If you've also lost sleep over this question, relax. Today we're going to explore this idea in a non-theological way, but full of irony. After all, if you're going to question infinity, do it in style. Part 1. The Great Heavenly Reunion. Long before the Big Bang, when there was no such thing as time, space, or bank lines, a group of cosmic beings, let's call them the planners, were messing around. They had invented some cool stuff, like black holes, subatomic particles, and that mysterious phenomenon called Monday, but they still needed something to give the universe a greater purpose. It was then that one of them, the most creative of the group, or the most idle, nobody knows, had a brilliant idea. What if we created a supreme being? Someone who already existed before he even existed? The others looked like they had heard the question, "What's there to eat?" from someone who was in the kitchen the whole time. "What do you mean? That doesn't make sense," said one of them. "Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. He'll be such an incredible being that people will believe in him even without an explanation." People liked it. The concept of a god with no origin seemed promising. He would be like a main character in an epic story, but without needing an introduction. Even better, he could create the universe and people, and no one would question how he came to be. Well, almost no one. Part 2. The Great Paradox. After the planners had the brilliant idea of creating a god without an origin, the technical problem arose: how to make this work without it looking like a cosmic hack. After all, everything in the universe had to have an explanation. Except God, because, well, he was God. The first attempts were a disaster. Version 1.0 of God needed to recharge its energy every 1,000 years, which was a terrible plan, because humans would ask questions like, "Why didn't God answer my prayer?" "Oh, it's because it's plugged in." Version 2.0 had a terrible bug. He knew everything, but only if he had Wi-Fi, and nobody wanted a God offline at critical moments. It was only in the final version that they got it right. God would be omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent from the beginning. Without beginning, without end, without needing a charger. But then came an important detail. The planners knew that sooner or later, humans would ask the question: if God created everything, who created God? This could cause a collapse in belief. So to avoid this problem, they decided to include a simple command in the source code of reality. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Ready. Without further explanation. Whoever asked, and before that, he would only receive confused looks and a pat on the back. The move was brilliant. If God always existed, there was no way to question his origin. The paradox was resolved, or at least well disguised. Part 3. The Master Move. With everything ready, the planners gave the project a final review. God was working perfectly, eternal, omnipotent, omniscient, and without needing an instruction manual. The universe was about to begin, and they could already feel the pride of someone who finishes a job ahead of schedule. But, as every good cosmic developer knows, there's always that one beta tester who finds a bug that no one expected. At first, humans were fine with the idea of a God who had always existed. But then along came the questioner, the guy who loves to ruin the simplicity of things. He looked up at the sky, scratched his chin, and blurted out, "If God created everything, then who created God?" The silence that followed was so heavy it almost became dark matter. The religious leaders, who already had a good plan in place, began to sweat. This could become a serious problem. If people began to wonder where God came from, the entire divine structure could collapse. That's when the classic answer came. God has always existed. There you go. Simple, direct, with no room for discussion. And the best part, if anyone insisted, the reply was infallible. It is a divine mystery. This strategy was a success. The questioner even tried to argue, but always ended up falling into the same impasse. And the more I tried to resolve the paradox, the more the answer "God has always existed" seemed like the only logical, or illogical, but functional way out. Meanwhile, the planners, up above, just watched and laughed. They had created the biggest unanswered question in history. And so, to this day, humanity continues to try to solve a mystery that, ironically, was made to have no solution. So that's today's video. I hope you liked it. See you in the next story.